I've been on mute. Okay. Let's start again. Okay, Renee. It was me on mute. Good evening and welcome back, Little Lane Jury Box. Welcome back to Trial Watch with Demetra. It is night court. We are on Legendary Trial Part 5. Shout out to M. Renee for being here. Check. Present. Shout out to our head bailiff in charge, Winter. Check. Present. C. Dupree, welcome back. Foot Soldier, welcome back. I'm glad to see y'all coming up in here. This is a special night court taking place on President's Day. But it is time for us to jump back into the legendary Who Shot the Sheriff trial from 2002. You know, on my left, we're going to get this recap down, okay? On my left, in Dekalb County, Georgia, Sheriff SIDNEY DORSEY maintained office for several years. And he was alleged very corrupt, okay? And when Sheriff Dorsey found himself losing control and ousted by his opponent during the sheriff election, Sheriff Derwin Brown. This was his rival. The sheriff-elect, he was elected sheriff. He successfully beat SIDNEY DORSEY, who had been unchallenged for years. He ran his campaign on the basis of cleaning out and cleaning up the sheriff department, ridding it of corruption that was done at the hands of our defendant, SIDNEY DORSEY. Okay? Even though he was ousted fair and square by election runoff, everything, he could not go peacefully. He would not go silently. Instead of just leaving office and doing something else with himself, SIDNEY DORSEY plotted and planned a murder for hire. He hired 4 men to assassinate Derwin Brown. Patrick Cuffey, you see him there to the right of SIDNEY DORSEY. Patrick Cuffey, head flunky in charge. He was the cop. He was the actual cop who served under Dorsey. He is the one that SIDNEY DORSEY went to first to hatch this plan. Patrick Cuffey is the one who enlisted the other 3 assassins. At the top right, Melvin Walker. In the middle with the perm and glasses, David Ramsey. At the bottom there, Paul Skyers. Now we're gonna hear a lot about corruption because that's part 1 of the charges. They got SIDNEY DORSEY on trial for 2 things: the corruption in his office as a sheriff, and also for the murder for hire. Okay. On the stand tonight is part 2 of the testimony from this man to my right, Paul Skyers. We heard Mr. Skyers testify last week when we concluded last Thursday. We heard him testify to being recruited into the plan, talking about how they met on Friday nights for a few months to get this together, how everything went kind of crazy and haywire, how the gun was all hot and had the car all messed it up, how they changed clothes, how he did all this for no money, but for a promise of a potential job. Okay? Let's see. And so that is I put head flunky. Because I was going to put right-hand man, but hey. So that's what we're picking up tonight, part 2 of Paul Skyers. He is the first one to testify of the henchmen, of the hired assassins. Paul Skyers, who on stand, was the getaway driver. Okay, now we found out he was the one who kind of put the gun together and all that kind of stuff, but he never fired any shots. They killed Derwin Brown. He was the getaway driver. Okay. All right. So we about to get into this. By tomorrow, we're going to be starting Patrick Cuffey, the right-hand man, the head flunky in charge. We're going to get into his testimony tomorrow, and that should really pull things together. I'm glad y'all are here joining me. Please hit the like. If you're new to this channel, thank you for coming through and checking us out over here. The chat community is called the Lit Lane Jury Box. Please feel free to drop down and participate. Let us get to know you. The Lit Lane Jury Box is opinionated, boisterous, intelligent, very discerning, sometimes emotional. Welcome back, Lady Steph, our official sergeant at arms. And we get rowdy sometimes, okay? So that's already a precursor to let you guys know who we are. If you check this out on a replay, thank you. Please drop a comment. Let me know you're here. Let me know what you thought about the trial if you're watching on the replay. If ever you should miss any part of the testimony of these night courts, there is a playlist titled Who Shot the Sheriff? Legendary Trial. So you can always find the content there. Tomorrow we have court during the daytime. We normally cover different things. Tomorrow we're going to be still doing live reaction. We're going to do the Kim Zolciak and her husband. Something to do when the cops came out with the body count footage. I'll be live at 10 a.m. for certain tomorrow. I'll be here for 10. Well, let me not say for certain. Child, I'm either going to be here for 10, 10:30, or 11. Somewhere between 10 and 11 Central Standard Time, I will be live, okay? I will schedule it. But that's enough about me. I hope you guys enjoyed the long weekend. And we're going to have to do something about these weekends away from each other. It's too much time outside of the Trial Watch channel. We got to come through on the weekends. I got to figure that out. But let's get started. I got everything set up and ready to go. Let's see. When baseball season start back up, I'll be able to come on more on the weekends when baseball season starts. All right, so let's see how this works for us. Let's go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you will not be viewing any tape at this time. That's my decision. I ask you to disregard any mention of the tape. Mr. Skyers, you are still under oath, all right?
I think this is redirect.
Mr. Skyers, do you deny telling Angelique Proctor of Fox 5 that the police have offered you immunity in March of 2001 if you implicate SIDNEY DORSEY in the murder of Derwin Brown?
Whatever was told to Ms. Proctor on the videotape was based on me, Paul Skyers, Patrick Cuffey, Melvin Walker, David Ramsey, and SIDNEY DORSEY being on the same footnote of the same team in order to protect Mr. Dorsey. So anything was said at the time. Everything said then was basically a sham, was basically misleading information. Yes, the police did say that to me, all right? But no offer would take it. It was reported to the media.
But the police did tell you in March of 2001 that if you implicate SIDNEY DORSEY in the murder of Derwin Brown, you would receive immunity, correct?
Yes, they did mention that to me.
Okay. The police also told you that if you implicate SIDNEY DORSEY in the murder of Derwin Brown, you would receive reward money, correct?
They mentioned that also.
And the police mentioned to you in March of 2001 that if you implicated SIDNEY DORSEY in the murder of Derwin Brown, you would get witness protection program, right?
They did mention that also.
And the witness protection program means that the police would change your identity, correct?
That is true.
And they would move you to another location where people probably wouldn't know you, correct?
That is so.
And they would give you a good credit history, correct?
That is so.
They'd set you up with a good job, correct?
Yes.
And they would pay the rest of your life money to you as a stipend, right?
I have no knowledge of that.
Now, when Patrick Cuffey got arrested in March of 2001, you already knew that if you implicated SIDNEY DORSEY in the murder of Derwin Brown, there was immunity being offered, correct?
As I said, it was mentioned, but it was only words at that time.
It was mentioned by the authorities, the police, right?
Yes.
And you didn't want Patrick Cuffey to get a life in prison sentence for the murder of Jeffrey Nigel George, did you?
No.
You wanted him to come home to be
Yes.
with you, right?
No, to be with his family.
And to be with your family. Uncle Pat's coming home, right?
Yes, Patrick Cuffey is coming home.
And that's why you visited Patrick Cuffey continually while he's in the jail after September 12th, 2001, right?
Yes, moral support.
Moral support. You wanted to show him, Mr. Cuffey, that you two are brothers, right?
Yes.
And you want to show him that you're there with him, right?
Yes.
And it's at that point that you and Mr. Cuffey devised the plan that winds SIDNEY DORSEY sitting here before this jury for the murder of Derwin Brown, right?
No, we did not.
You devised that plan before he got arrested?
We devised no plan before or after he arrested to come forth with the truth.
You got immunity for your role in the murder of Derwin Brown, correct?
Yes, I did.
You have never spent a second in jail for the murder of Derwin Brown, right?
No, I haven't.
And Miss Charlene Francis, you know.
All right, so there you have it. Cutting to the chase. We had that question last week. Hey, Captain Smith, glad to see you back in the box. So now we know now without any doubt, Paul Skyers, the getaway driver, absolutely got immunity. Boom. Boom. He got immunity. Now, I wonder if he got all that other stuff. Because, baby, snitching on your crime, your fellow crime mates apparently pays off.
Know who that is?
No.
You don't know who Charlene Francis is?
No.
Okay. Are you aware that Charlene Francis got immunity for the
You're
murder
talking
of Derwin
Charlene Francis, not Charlene. Charlene.
All right, Mr. Starks.
Yes, sir.
Sit back a bit. You're getting a little loud.
Well, he didn't pronounce it right, so I didn't understand what he said. Okay.
Next one.
Who's Miss Francis?
Patrick Cuffey, girlfriend,
Fiance?
fiance, yeah.
Why does she need immunity in the murder of Derwin Brown?
I have no idea.
Now, when you went on November 29th of 2001 to meet with Mr. Morgan, that was in Rockdale County, correct?
Yeah, that is so.
And that's an annex, a police annex, which an annex is just a word for it's a separate building of the police department, right?
Yes,
And in that meeting, it was you, correct? Your lawyer, Tony Axum, right?
yes,
J. Tom Morgan, John Petrie, Investigator Harvey, right?
yes,
And that's what you told them about the murder weapon and the need for the extractor pin, correct?
yes,
And you also, before you went into that meeting, met with Patrick Cuffey, right?
yes,
And Patrick Cuffey's attorney named Keith Adams was there, right?
yes, he was.
And you were already on notice that immunity was coming your way that day, right?
No, I did not.
You didn't know that immunity was being offered to you when you drove to Rockdale County Police Annex. Is that your testimony?
Yeah, that is my testimony. I did not.
After receiving the telephone call, that morning of November 29th, 2001, you stated you're at work, right?
Yes,
And you got a telephone call from Mr. Patrick Cuffey, right?
yes,
And it was unusual because it wasn't a collect call, he was calling direct, right?
yes,
And Mr. Cuffey, since September 12, 2001, couldn't make direct calls because when you're an inmate in a jail, you have to use collect telephone use, right?
yes,
And this call, though, didn't come through an operator making a collect call, came right to you on your cell phone, right?
yes, it did.
And it was Patrick Cuffey said, come on down, right?
Yes,
And is it your testimony Patrick Cuffey did not tell you that you had immunity? It was a great day. You'll never be charged with your role in Derwin Brown's homicide.
no. All he said was, trust me on this one, meet with the officials. I asked him one question, as I explained earlier, should I wear whites? I had an idea. He might have said something, but I didn't know what was involved. I walked into Rockdale County with blindfolds on.
Mr. Axon was there to meet you, right?
Yes.
And did you know prior to that Mr. Axon was even your lawyer?
No, as I said, when Patrick decided to go ahead and tell the truth and set forth this forthcoming, all this was pre-arranged before I got there. As I said, I walked into Rockdale County Annex blindfolded. I heard for the first time when I got to Rockdale County that Patrick had told what went on for December the 15th and what led up to it.
And is that the first time you knew that you were going to never spend a second in jail? You were going to be immunized?
Yes.
After work, is it your testimony that you left work after receiving this phone call and drove straight over to Rockdale County?
No, I went home and changed.
Did you go anywhere else?
I stopped at a lawyer's office, talked to him briefly.
Take your hand away from your mouth, you're muffling.
Sorry.
That's all right, go ahead.
What's that lawyer's name?
Frederick Jackson.
Okay, and he was your lawyer at that time, correct?
Still is.
Okay. And Frederick Jackson and you met and had a conversation about you going to Rockdale County, correct?
I just told him I was on my way down there. Counsel will be present just to stand by if I needed to call him.
And you also told Mr. Jackson that you were receiving immunity from prosecution for your role in the Derwin Brown murder case, right?
I did not tell Mr. Jackson any of that sort. As I repeated before, I went to Rockdale County blindfolded. Patrick Cuffey had already set the setting and the standards of telling the truth. And he included me into it.
Patrick was setting the standards?
He set the tone. He told the truth. He came forth with the truth.
Are you denying that you told Mr. Frederick Jackson, an attorney?
Asked and answered.
Now you believed, did you not, that if Sheriff-elect Brown was dead, SIDNEY Dorsey would just continue as sheriff?
You asking me, repeat the question, please.
Did you believe before the killing of Derwin Brown that if Sheriff-elect Derwin Brown was dead, SIDNEY Dorsey would just continue to be sheriff of Dekalb County?
That was Mr. Dorsey's, what you would say, idea or his actions. As far as if this took place, he would still have the power to run the county.
You stated on direct that you never spoke with SIDNEY Dorsey about the murder of Derwin Brown.
No, I haven't.
Welcome back, Tweety girl. Good to see you.
Is it true that it was your belief that if Derwin Brown was deceased, SIDNEY Dorsey would continue to be sheriff of Dekalb County?
SIDNEY Dorsey led Patrick Cuffey, Melvin Walker, and David Ramsey. If Derwin Brown did not take office, he would still be in control. As I said, Patrick Cuffey was the mediator between SIDNEY Dorsey and us. Us being myself, with all messages being passed back and forth through Patrick Cuffey. I never once believed it would take place as such.
Do you remember telling Mr. Morgan on November 29th, 2001, on page 13, line 16?
You need to show it to the witness if you're going to quote.
I approach.
Thank you.
Do you recall telling Mr. Morgan that Patrick Cuffey told you that the understanding was that if Mr. Brown never made the office, Sidney Dorsey would stay on as sheriff.
Yes,
And if Sidney Dorsey was going to be sheriff, you wanted a civilian job in that office, right?
yes.
You expected to make $40,000, correct?
I was already making that.
At the sheriff's office, you were expecting to make $40,000 a year, right?
Yes,
And you were going to also get overtime, was your plan, just like Patrick Cuffey did, right?
yes,
And you were going to try to make $100,000 a year as a Dekalb County Sheriff Office employee, right?
as much as I could.
You put in an application for the sheriff's department to get that job, right?
Yes, I did. Which one are you talking about in specific?
May I approach your honor?
He had applied more than one time and then come to find out he wasn't even qualified for the job. That's part of the sheriff corruption. He was hiring people that wasn't even qualified.
I'd like to show you what I've marked as defendant's exhibit number 42. Tell me if you recognize, look at the whole document. If you want to, tell me if you recognize that document.
Yes,
And what is that document?
it's a waiver of liability. It's a physical efficiency battery test.
And is the whole document your application for Dekalb County Sheriff's Office? Your job application?
This is somewhat of a summary application.
Okay. What date did you turn that application in to Dekalb County Sheriff's Office? What date did you apply?
It says August 21st.
Year 2000.
Yes,
And August 21st of 2000 is before August 29th, 2000, right?
yes.
Now, I want to talk with you about the night that Derwin Brown was taken.
I bet you he was wondering why
You
you put it that
testified
way.
that you previously were 10 feet from Derwin Brown's home on occasions with a loaded weapon aimed at his front door, right?
On one occasion.
You dressed in all black.
Yes,
You're just waiting for him to step out that door. Is that correct?
yes,
You were prepared to put bullets into his body, right?
yes.
On December 15th of 2000, you had that Tech 9 with you, didn't you?
No,
It wasn't in your possession?
no, it wasn't.
Just raise his hand.
If you can speak up, and you need to speak up.
On December 15th of 2000, is it true that you had the murder weapon in your hand?
No, that's not true.
Is it true that you and Patrick Cuffey, after dropping off your car at the Amico station on Glenwood Road and Covington Highway, got into his car, the green 1990 Honda Accord?
No, I did not.
That's not true.
That's not true. I went back to Burger King. My mistake.
Ingalls next to the MVP.
No. Let me rephrase this. When I met Patrick at Amico on Glenwood and Covington, we spoke briefly. He told me it had to be done tonight. He was under pressure from the man, SIDNEY DORSEY. I left and went back to Burger King on Panola Road.
May I know? May I ask Mr. Skyers to step down here?
Y'all in your backs, please speak up, all right?
This is State's Exhibit number 80. I'd like you to look at this, get acquainted with this picture. If it helps you, you can look over at the diagram as well. Just tell me when you're acquainted with it, if you recognize what it is.
It appears or it looks like.
It appears or looks like what?
Why are you acting crazy?
It doesn't tell me very much.
Okay, let me see if I can help you if you recognize it, okay? Let's just assume this is Derwin Brown's home that's not depicted in the picture, and these are the columns, the arches. Remember that? In front of his house?
That's what you're saying. You're talking about these shrubs right here.
Talking about the arches in the brick. Where were you laying? This is Derwin Brown's front yard, this triangle or rectangle, excuse me, triangle. Where were you laying when you were 10 feet away from Derwin Brown's home with a gun in your hand ready to shoot him if he came out of the front door?
First and foremost, his yard is not rectangle.
Please speak up.
First and foremost, his front yard is not rectangle.
I meant triangle.
Triangle. It is square.
Where were you laying if you can see that this is his front yard? Do you recognize this at all?
No.
How did you know that Derwin Brown was driving a rental car on December 15th of 2000?
Information came through Patrick Cuffey.
And how did you know that Derwin Brown was going to be getting home approximately 11:20 on December 15th of 2000, pulling up in his car?
We did not know that.
It was just sheer luck?
You can call it that.
You think it was lucky?
Yes.
And why is it that night there are two cars out at the time of the murder? Yours and the car driven by Mr. Cuffey.
I'm going to object. I don't recall anything to support that particular question. It's almost a hypothetical question, and there's nothing that I've heard in the course of the evidence that suggests that.
It's news to me. Restate your question, please.
The 1990 Honda Accord driven by Patrick Cuffey on December 15th, 2000. Was it green in color?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And did it have a dome? You know what a dome light is in a car?
Yes.
Okay. And is it fair to say that the dome light inside the car was not on?
I can't recall.
And is it fair to say that the back of the car, you know what taillights are on a vehicle?
Yes, it is.
And they are rectangular on that vehicle that Mr. Cuffey was driving that night, right?
All Honda cars have rectangular taillights.
I'm sorry?
I mean, all Hondas seem to have a rectangular in look taillight.
And on the time of the killing of Derwin Brown, is it true that you watched him pull in front of his home?
No, I did not.
You saw him get out of his car and start walking up his driveway, did you?
I didn't see anything. I did not see anything.
Did you chase him with that gun outstretched in your hand?
No, I did not, sir.
You fire bullets into Derwin Brown's body on December 15th of 2000, right in his front of his home.
No, I did not.
Did you run down the driveway and get into the car, that green Honda with the rectangular taillights?
No, I did not. But counsel, when did the burgundy Honda turn to a green Honda all of a sudden?
Did you get in the passenger side with that hot gun smoking up the windows of the green 1990 Honda?
No, I did not.
I wonder, hey, VA Sage, welcome back.
Did you know that Patrick Cuffey has stated
No, thank you,
that
VA
he was going
Sage.
to kill you and plant the murder weapon in your home?
It was plotted by Sidney Dorsey himself, Melvin Walker, and David Ramsey. Yes, I'm aware of that.
Patrick Cuffey told you that, huh?
Yes, he did.
When this trial is over, are you communicating with your lawyers to see what your percentage of the book deal could be?
I don't know nothing
Welcome
about
back,
no
Andy
book
Kane.
deal.
What do you know about as far as money if there's a conviction of Sidney Dorsey in this trial?
If it took me 11 months not to open my mouth, what make you think I am still going to sit here and publicize myself in a book on an execution of someone to make money?
Did you tell attorney Frederick Jackson to call Dwayne Jones and ensure that you're not cut out of the book deal between Dwayne Jones and Patrick Cuffey? Did you tell him that?
Please approach. Mr. Steele, please approach.
Are you aware Patrick Cuffey and his attorney Dwayne Jones are trying to work out specifics on a book deal if there's a conviction of Sidney Dorsey in this case?
There's to my knowledge,
Welcome back,
Yes.
Miss Step 219. Good
And
to see
isn't
you.
it true that you called Frederick Jackson, an attorney in Atlanta, and asked him to ensure that you're not cut out of your money on that book deal?
my information given here, truthful as it is, was part of what needed to be added to whatever book or whoever Patrick talked to. So I called Frederick and I told him talk to Dwayne Jones, and I left it at that. How far may I continue with it? I don't know.
You stated that money was very tight and the person that you owed $900 to pay off your car wanted the money and you paid him $900, correct?
Yes,
And then you went to Sidney Dorsey and explained to him that you're tight on money because you just gave out $900 unexpectedly and Sidney Dorsey loaned you $1,000, right?
yes, he did.
And you told Sidney Dorsey, I'll pay you back within 2 weeks.
Yes, I did.
And in fact, you paid him back $415 of that $1,000, right?
400. Not 415, 400.
May I have one moment, Judge?
Yep.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Yes, Your Honor, just a few questions. Mr. Skyers, Mr. Steele mentioned the name Shirlene Francis. You know who Miss Francis is.
Yes, I do.
Did she ever participate in surveillance, to your knowledge?
No, not to my knowledge, sir.
Was she in the car with you on December 15th, to your knowledge?
No, sir.
Mr. Steele mentioned the witness protection program. Are you currently in the witness protection program?
No, sir.
Have you been given a clean slate on your credit?
No, sir.
Have you been receiving money on a regular basis from the government?
No, sir.
Have you been promised money for the rest of your life?
No, sir.
When you talked to Mr. Morgan, Mr. Petrie, and Mr. Harvey on November 29th of 2001, did they tell you what to say?
No, sir.
Did they tell you you had to implicate a particular individual?
No, sir.
Did they tell you you had to implicate SIDNEY Dorsey?
No, sir.
Did they tell you you had to implicate Melvin Walker?
No, sir.
Did they tell you you had to implicate David Ramsey?
No, sir.
When you were actually interviewed by those individuals, was Mr. Cuffey present?
No, he was not.
Now, for you to have benefited and become a civilian employee of the sheriff's office, it was necessary for SIDNEY Dorsey to remain sheriff.
Yeah, that would be correct.
So for you to benefit, SIDNEY Dorsey would have to benefit as well.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Steele asked you if August the 21st is before August the 29th. Do you remember that question?
Yes, if in reference to this
Yes, sir.
application here.
Is August the 21st after August the 8th?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay. And is there any reason whatsoever that you would lie about what car you drove on December 15th, 2000?
No, sir. In reference to the August 21st, the sheriff department did give me a call to come back down. For whatever reason, they had a pool, and this is how this came forth.
Mr. Skyers, I understand.
Okay,
Hold on.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you need to listen for a question. Okay, don't just start talking, okay?
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Clegg.
Did you actually go down to the sheriff's office at some point later in the year 2000?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember when that would have been in the year 2000?
Went down to the office on several occasions.
Do you remember the specific dates? If you do not, that is fine, sir.
No, I don't.
Did you ever actually go to work for the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office?
No, I did not.
Did SIDNEY Dorsey stop being sheriff on January 1st, 2001?
Yes, he did.
Nothing further.
Anything else? All right, can he be excused? All right, Mr. Skyers.
Oh,
Step back
good.
out that way. You're excused.
Good. So we're going to get into Patrick Cuffey tonight. I didn't expect to be getting to Patrick.
Thank you. All right, lady. Not be viewing any tape at this time. That's my decision. I ask you to disregard any mention of a tape.
Hold on. Okay, so let me stop sharing it. So if I tell y'all my job as a judge is not a simple one, I got the baby on my lap because Rock came home being mean and grumpy. I got Rock down here getting blow dried because he won't let nobody else blow dry him. I got a lot going on right now. We can handle it though. Let's get to. I didn't think we was gonna get to Patrick Cuffey tonight, but I'm glad that we are because we really need to hear from Patrick Cuffey, the henchman, the one who the sheriff actually went to and told about the plan, and the one who lined up everybody else. Let me see. So I thought we were going to be getting to him tomorrow. I'm glad it's going to be tonight. Hold on. And so what we just learned from that second part of Paul Schuyler, the getaway driver, is that we know we on my face. We know without a shadow of a doubt that he absolutely got immunity. It sounded to me like he got a sweetheart of a deal. All right, so we're pulling up Patrick Cuffey. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Okay. Oh, Lord, he cocky too. And let me push this on pause. Let me share it to you guys. I got my hands full right now. Okay, let's see. Boom. Boom. I ain't seen Living. Has Living made it? Oh, she. I haven't seen Living. Let's see. Okay, let's go. On the stand now is Patrick Cuffey. He is the one who directly worked with the sheriff in the sheriff's department. He was actually a police officer. Now, we heard during opening statement that even though he was actually a police officer, he was a bad cop and that he had several complaints on him within the sheriff's department. So we kind of already knew that information. So let's check him out. Let's get started with the testimony of Patrick Cuffey, the right-hand man, or head flunky in charge.
Take your hand down and state your name, please, sir.
Patrick Cuffey.
Mr. Cuffey, it is going to be necessary for you to speak into the microphone. The acoustics in this room are not the best, so please try to remember that during the course of your testimony. Mr. Cuffey, how old are you, sir?
37.
Where are you originally from, sir?
The island of Dominica, West Indies.
At some point, did you live in the Virgin Islands?
Yes, sir.
When is it, or how old were you when you lived in the Virgin Islands?
I grew up there in my younger age, from about 5, 6 to about 15, maybe, when I came up to Atlanta.
Since that time, have you lived in the United States?
Since what time, sir?
Since the time you said you came to Atlanta at the age of approximately 16. Have you been living in the United States since that time?
No, sir.
Where else?
Well, yes, I've been living there since, yes.
How long overall have you lived in the United States, sir?
21, 22 years, sir.
Okay. Have you lived primarily in the Atlanta area while you were living in the United States?
Yes, sir.
Were you in the Marines for a brief period of time?
Yes, sir.
When would that have been, sir?
It would have been after high school, 1985 through 1986 through 1989.
After the Marines, did you come back to the Atlanta area?
Yes, sir.
And had you lived in the Atlanta area since that time?
Yes, sir.
Are you currently in custody, Mr. Cuffey?
I am.
How long have you been in custody, sir?
Approximately 10 months.
Do you recall the specific date on which you were arrested?
Yes, sir.
What date would that have been, sir?
September 12th, 2001.
Growing up in the Virgin Islands, did you know a young man by the name of David Ramsey?
Yes, sir.
How is it that you knew David Ramsey?
We lived as neighbors in the same neighborhood.
Was he a friend of yours growing up?
Yes, sir.
Let me just show you very briefly, sir. Let me put up the people. Show you an individual here. If you would come very briefly down off the witness stand, Mr. Cuffey. Point to an individual. Do you recognize this individual?
Yes, sir.
Again, you need to speak up. So the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is that the individual you know to be David Ramsey?
Yes, sir.
Was he your friend growing up in the Virgin Islands?
Yes, sir.
Do you know an individual by the name of Paul Scholars?
Yes, sir.
Is this Mr. Scholars?
Yes, sir.
Do you know an individual by the name of Melvin Walker?
Yes, sir.
Is this Mr. Walker?
Yes, sir.
You may have a seat back up on the witness stand, please, sir.
That's all people that they put together for the hitman team.
In addition to those individuals, sir, did you know a person by the name of Sidney Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
Do you see Mr. Dorsey in his courtroom here today?
Yes, sir.
Could you point him out for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, sir?
Mr. Dorsey.
There are 5 individuals at that table, sir. Which of the 5 would it be?
Your Honor, we'll stipulate that Sidney Dorsey is sitting to my right next to Mr. Sam.
All right.
How is it that you knew Sidney Dorsey, sir?
Informally, I met Sidney Dorsey during my high school days.
Did Sidney Dorsey Jr., the son of Sidney Dorsey, go to high school with you?
Yes, sir.
When you got out of the Marines, what did you do for a living?
I worked miscellaneous security jobs here and there.
At some point, did you go to work for a company known as SID?
Yes, sir.
How long did you work for SID?
I started in 1992 till 1997.
Who was operating SID during the period of time that you worked for that company, sir?
Sidney Dorsey and his wife, Sherry Dorsey.
Was he operating that business during the entire period of time that you were working for them?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, did David Ramsey ever work for SID?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, did Paul Skyers ever work for SID?
Yes, sir.
And to your knowledge, did Melvin Walker ever work for SID?
Yes, sir.
During your tenure or during the time that you worked for SID, did you come into contact with Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
Describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how often you would have come into contact with Mr. Dorsey.
As often as on a daily basis.
Would you receive certain assignments to go to various locations as a security guard?
Yes, sir.
Who would give you those assignments, sir?
They would come from Mr. Dorsey.
Okay. Would you go, was there an office during that period of time which was maintained by SID?
Yes, sir.
Would you have occasion to go to that office?
Yes, sir.
How often would you go to that office?
As often as necessary.
Excuse me, sir?
As often as necessary.
Okay. And when you would go to the office, would you come into contact with Mr. Dorsey?
If he was there, yes.
Describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury your relationship with Mr. Dorsey during the period of time that you were working for SID.
The early part, latter part.
Well, the latter part. How about just go to the latter part? That's correct. That's fine, sir.
We became very close friends.
When you say very close friends, please elaborate, sir.
Well, a friend is a person you can depend on. And besides him being my employer, I thought we had a personal relationship.
How long had you had that relationship with Mr. Dorsey while you were working for SID?
In my opinion, it was immediate.
I'm sorry, again, please speak up, sir.
In my opinion, it was immediately. Once I got in contact with him, we became very close. So it's.
Were you close during the entire period that you worked for SID with Sidney Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
At some point, did Sidney Dorsey run for sheriff in the year 1996?
Yes, sir.
Did you work on his campaign?
Yes, sir.
What kind of work would you have done for Mr. Dorsey's campaign, sir?
Primarily, I did the grunting, the yard sign, canvassing, and on occasion, his driver.
When you say his driver, it's almost self-evident, but please explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how often you would be the driver and where you would drive him.
I would be the driver anytime he needed me, and I would drive him to various places, forums, neighborhood canvassing, wherever he needed to go. If I was available, I would take him.
Did you perform that function during the 1996 election on a regular basis for Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
Other than yourself and him, would there be anyone with you as you went from one location to another?
On most occasions, yes.
There would be someone else with you?
Yes, sir.
Who else would be with you, sir?
Maybe David Ramsey.
Okay. Did David Ramsey work for Sidney Dorsey's election during the year 1996?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, did Melvin Walker work for Sidney Dorsey's election during that year?
No, sir.
To your knowledge, did Paul Skyers work for Mr. Dorsey's election during the course of 1996?
Paul helped out on occasion, but he was not committed.
How many hours would you estimate you devoted to working on Sidney Dorsey's campaign during the year 1996?
On a daily basis, Monday through Friday, after I would have done my 8 hours at my regular job, then between the hours of
Welcome back, Pretty Eye Shannon.
5, 6 o'clock to maybe midnight, maybe longer than that, Monday through Friday, and on occasion, all day Saturday and Sundays.
Now, going back to 1996, were there essentially 2 elections that year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I got to pause this, but I got a feeling I've been looking at assassins, and now I'm looking. Okay, I had a feeling that it was going to be something about assassins. I promise you, I've been looking at this word assassins for a minute here, and I kept looking at it saying, is that spelled wrong? It don't look spelled wrong, but it looks spelled wrong. So this trial is about the sheriff who couldn't take losing. On trial is Sidney Dorsey. He on trial for the murder of his rival. This is the rival, Derwin Brown. He hired 4 different people to assassinate Derwin Brown because he lost the sheriff election. And so on the stand right now is the person that he went to hatch the plan and to put the plan in motion. That's Sidney Brown. So who just got on the stand is his right-hand man, the person he went to put the hit out on his rival, who had got elected sheriff and had got him put out the sheriff office. That's this trial. This is a legendary trial from 2002. Welcome under new management. Welcome to the Little Lane Jury Box. Good to see you. Legendary trial. Who shot the sheriff? 2002. Let's go. Let me try to fix this word.
Was there an individual, are you familiar with an individual by the name of Bob Morris?
Yes, sir.
Who is Bob Morris?
Bob Morris at that time was a candidate also for, during the 1996 election, was also a candidate for sheriff.
Did Bob Morris win the first election in 1996?
Yes, sir.
Did you have occasion to come into contact with Sidney Dorsey after Mr. Morris had won the election and Mr. Dorsey had lost the election?
Yes, sir.
What were the circumstances? First off, where were you when you came into contact with Mr. Dorsey?
I visited him at his home.
Okay. Who else would have been present at his home at that time?
Sherry Dorsey.
Okay. Did a conversation about Bob Morris take place?
Yes, sir.
Would you relate that conversation to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, sir?
Once I made my way into the home, we were located in the den area. Before I had got there, Sydney and his wife was there.
Was anyone else there at that time?
None that I can recall.
Was this the first time you had been to Mr. Dorsey's home?
No, sir.
Estimate, before you go any further, how many times you would have been to Mr. Dorsey's home prior to this meeting in 1996?
Countless, sir.
How many, sir?
Countless.
Okay. Go ahead. Describe the conversation as best you recall it, sir.
As I entered the home, apparently they were having a discussion, and I recalled Sherry walking away, saying that.
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, it's part of the race gist side of the conversation, and it would explain the subsequent conversation between Mr. Cuffey and Mr. Dorsey.
Overruled.
Please proceed, sir.
I recall before Sherry left the room with me and Dorsey, she said that Bob Morris had to go, and she walked away and left.
Okay. Was there, after that comment made by Sherry,
Because of the heated discussion, it seemed like it was a heated discussion. I asked, what was that all about when Sherry left? And Dorsey explained to me what Sherry meant is that if Bob Morris was dead, then I would automatically be the sheriff.
now at that time, were you working for the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office?
No, sir.
At that time, did you want to go to work for the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
If Sidney Dorsey were to win the election, were you planning to go to work for the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
Based on that conversation, did you do anything yourself in regards to Bob Morris?
Yes, sir.
Describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury exactly what you did.
Well, after that conversation, when I'd left, I called a friend of Paul, and I said to him, I think Dorsey wants us to get rid of Bob Morris. Something to that effect.
Did you begin to track Bob Morris?
Yes, sir.
How long of a period did you track for?
On a couple occasions, we sat outside his home.
Did you ever attempt to commit an act of violence against Bob Morris?
Attend?
Yes.
No, sir.
Okay. Who would have been with you during the surveillances of Mr. Morris?
Myself and Paul.
When you say Paul, would that be Paul Skyers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was there a second?
And so let's real quickly touch on that. So what we finding out now is that as far back as 1996, before he had ever even got elected as sheriff, he was already willing to go to any length in order to get in that position. So this years before they successfully assassinated Derwin Brown, this is a whole nother person in 1996 before Dorsey even became sheriff for the first time. He was just running for the office, that these same people, Cuffy and the one we just saw, was prepared and willing to assassinate somebody for Sidney Dorsey. Damn, that's a lot.
Election in 1996.
That's the truth. So that
is there an interim election and then a
why
regular
it was
election?
so easy to do it in 2000.
There was a interim election, and then yes, 1997.
Okay. And in the second election, did Mon-Thurs run as the incumbent?
Yes, sir.
Did Sidney Dorsey run against him?
Yes, sir.
Did you work on behalf of Sidney Dorsey during the course of that election?
Yes, sir.
Did Sidney Dorsey win?
Yes, sir.
As a result of that, did you go to work for the Dekalb County Sheriff, sir?
Yes, sir.
When is it that you went to work for the Dekalb County Sheriff?
January of 1997.
How long after Sidney Dorsey had moved into the office of Sheriff of Dekalb County was it that you went to work for the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office, sir?
Maybe a day or two, approximately.
Within a week?
Within a week.
Had you had discussions with Mr. Dorsey prior to your going to work for the Sheriff's Office as to what your assignment was going to be?
Yes, sir.
What was your assignment going to be in the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office, sir?
Initially, he had asked me what I wanted to do.
When you say he,
Sidney
be
Dorsey
specific. Okay, go ahead, sir.
had asked me what I wanted to do. And I suggested to him that I would be interested in going into internal affairs.
What is internal affairs?
Internal affairs is an inner organization within the department that it's police.
Okay. Now, prior to that time, had you ever worked for the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office before?
No, sir.
Prior to that time, had you ever worked for any police office or police department before?
Besides as a military police, no.
Were you in the military police, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long were you a military police officer?
3 years.
Prior to that time, however, excluding working for the military police, had you ever worked for a civilian police organization?
No, sir.
Did you have any experience yourself in internal affairs?
No, sir.
What was your assignment or position going to be in internal affairs?
An investigator.
And did you discuss this with Sidney Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
Did you actually wind up as an investigator in internal affairs?
No, sir.
What was your first assignment while working for the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office, sir?
It would have been the jail division.
How long did you remain in the jail division?
Approximately 2.5, 3 years.
Did you ever have any sort of disagreements with supervisors while you were working in the jail division?
Most of the time.
When you say most of the time?
Yes, sir.
Not most of the
Did
time.
you have access to Sidney Dorsey during that period of time?
Yes, sir.
How often would you come into contact with Sidney Dorsey during that period of time?
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
How often during that period of time, and you said you worked for the jail division for 2.5 to 3 years, I believe. How often during that specific period of time would you have come into contact with Mr. Dorsey?
I had access to him whenever I needed.
Estimate for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the number of times you would have actually seen him during the course of a typical month.
I would probably see him in a typical month, maybe at the most 5 times. that many.
What would the circumstances be under which you would see him, sir?
Well, there's a difference, and I want to explain that when you ask the circumstances of seeing him.
Okay, I'm the new management.
I
Thank
didn't
you for coming
always
through.
see him. I made calls if necessary. I would call him.
What would you call him about, sir?
The situation in which you're saying the disagreement with the jail division I was
Welcome
having.
back, Miss Sassafran.
Did you on occasion have disagreements with supervisors?
Most of the time, sir.
Did you bring those to the attention of Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
What would happen as a result of that, sir?
On most of the occasion, he handled it for me. He said he would take care of it.
Okay, again, you need to just speak up a little bit. You have a little bit of an accent, Mr. Covey. Try to speak up just a tad. Again, on those occasions, what would happen?
Mr. Dorsey would handle those situations for me.
Were you ever reprimanded because of those situations?
On some of those occasions, yes.
Were you moved from one position to another as a result of the disagreements you had with supervisors?
On many occasions.
How many times would you estimate that your position in the jail would have changed during the period of time that you were working in the jail division, sir?
Within that 2.5 years, approximately 10 times.
Would you have brought each and every one of those situations to the attention of Mr. Dorsey?
I believe so, yes.
And would you get a change in assignment as a result?
No, sir.
Okay. During that period of time, did Mr. Dorsey ever ask you to do something on his behalf involving his political rivals?
Yes, sir.
What did he ask you to do?
Apparently he was having some negative feedback from some enemies, I would call them. And he'd asked me he wanted me to go undercover wearing a undercover mic to record those people and that were supposedly his enemies plotting against him.
Okay. Where did you have that conversation with Mr. Dorsey when he requested that you do that?
In his office.
Was anyone else present at that time?
No, sir.
Were you provided with some sort of undercover microphone for the purpose of carrying out that assignment?
Yes, sir.
Did you in fact carry out that assignment?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall, as best you can, the number of people that you would have sought to talk to at the behest of Mr. Dorsey?
I would say about 7 or 8, sir.
Okay. Did he provide certain names to you? I mean, how did you know who to talk to, sir?
Yes, I would think yes.
Okay. And did you in fact go and talk to those folks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you have the mic with you during that time?
Yes, sir.
What would you tell them to try to get them to talk?
That Dorsey had just fired me.
Had he in fact actually fired you?
No, sir.
Okay. And would they talk to you about Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
What would you do with the tape recordings of those conversations, sir?
What would I have done with them?
Yes, did you keep them for yourself?
No, sir. Thereafter the assignment was over, I would have turned it over to Mr. Dorsey.
Okay. When you say Mr. Dorsey, Sidney Dorsey, the gentleman seated here in this courtroom today.
Yes, sir.
At that point, did you go back to your assignment with the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What was your specific assignment at that time, if you recall, sir?
I was assigned to the Grady unit.
The what unit?
The Grady unit.
The Grady unit?
Yes, sir.
And did you remain on the Grady unit for some period of time?
Yes, sir.
In 2000, when 2000 began, sir, what would have been your assignment at that time?
I would have then been assigned to the jail division at the lobby area.
At the what area?
The lobby area,
The lobby area, the front entrance to the jail?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, during this period of time, sir, you had testified previously that you considered yourself to be a close friend of Sidney Dorsey. Were you, while you worked as the Dekalb County Deputy Sheriff and Detention Officer, a close friend of Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
Did you volunteer to work on his reelection in the year 2000?
Yes, sir.
Did you, in fact, work on his reelection in the year 2000?
Yes, sir.
Specifically, what would you have done on behalf of Mr. Dorsey during the year 2000?
At this point, I would have been in charge of again, grunting, yard signs, canvassing certain neighborhoods.
Would you have ever been Mr. Dorsey's driver during the election in the year 2000?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Did you ever have occasion to attend any sort of political functions with Mr. Dorsey during the election in the year 2000?
Yes, sir.
Would he introduce you to other people?
In the year 2000?
Yes, sir. Or during the course of the campaigns?
Not in that election, no.
Okay. Had he introduced you to people during the course of the previous election, sir?
Yes, sir.
How would he introduce you during the course of that previous election, sir?
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt. Like, are we talking about 1996?
That is, no, I'm sorry. I believe that is what he is. You're referring to 1996 at this time, sir?
1997.
Okay, well, the election when he became sheriff of Dekalb County, the first time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How would he introduce you during the course of that time, sir?
On 2 occasions, I recall him introducing me as his son.
Okay. Again, the acoustics in this room, sir, are not the best. You need to try to speak up. On 2 occasions, and then I missed the rest of the answer.
He introduced me as his son.
Did you consider him to be a father figure?
Yes, sir.
Did you consider yourself to be that close to Sidney Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
Now, how many hours would you estimate you would have worked on his behalf during the 2000 election?
Again, after I did my 8 hours at the sheriff's department, I would then commit to working, say, from 5:30, 6 o'clock to, again, whenever, usually after past 12.
Did you come into contact with Mr. Dorsey much during that period of time, sir?
Every day.
How often would you see him every day?
It would be doing the campaign.
Was David Ramsey working on the campaign with you during the year 2000?
Yes, sir.
Was Paul Skyers working on the campaign with you during the year 2000?
No, sir.
Now, at this time, sir, you were an employee of the Dekalb County Sheriff. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was Melvin Walker working for the Dekalb County Sheriff at this time?
Yes, sir.
Who had been the sheriff when Melvin Walker had been hired?
Sidney Dorsey.
Who had been the sheriff when you had been hired?
Sidney Dorsey.
Were David Ramsey or Paul Skyers employed by the Dekalb County Sheriff at this time?
No, sir.
Did Mr. Dorsey win or lose the election?
2000?
Yes.
He would have lost.
Okay. And who was the person who ran against him, sir?
For that
In
particular
2000.
defeat.
Who won the election in 2000?
Derwin Brown.
When you had been asked by Mr. Dorsey to conduct undercover surveillance in 1998, had Mr. Brown's name been mentioned?
Yes, sir.
Were you requested to, in fact, record a conversation with Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir.
Did you, in fact, do so?
Yes, sir.
What would you have told Derwin Brown when you first approached him on that occasion, sir?
That Dorsey had fired me.
Were you trying to get Mr. Brown to say something?
Yes, sir.
What is it you were trying to get him to say?
Well, the intent was to get a reaction, not anything in particular, just a reaction. And he said some things that was recorded.
Did you come up with the idea as to what was to be said?
No, sir.
Did Sidney Dorsey come up with the idea as to what was to be said?
I believe that was part of the assignment. Yes, would have been to.
You were not really fired, were you?
No, sir.
Was that your idea to pretend to be fired?
No, sir.
Was it Sidney Dorsey's idea to pretend to be fired?
Yes, sir.
After Mr. Dorsey lost the 2000 election, did you receive a change in assignments at the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
And where were you reassigned to, sir?
To the Community Relations Division.
Had you expressed an interest prior to that time in the community relations position?
No, sir.
Okay. Where did the Director of Community Relations have an office?
Yes, sir.
Where would that physically have been in relationship to the Sheriff's Office?
Approximately 2-3 doors down from the Sheriff's Office.
Is there an administrative part of the Sheriff's Division, sir?
Yes, sir.
Is the Sheriff's Office in the administrative part?
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
Is the Community Relations Director's office in the administrative part?
Yes, sir.
Would you have been assigned to that specific office?
Community Relations, yes, sir.
Prior to that time, had you had an office of your own?
No, sir.
Were you given a take-home car?
Yes, sir.
Prior to that time, had you had a take-home car?
No, sir.
Describe the car for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, sir.
It's a Crown Victoria with the sheriff emblem on both sides.
What color is it, sir?
It's a 90% white vehicle.
Does it look like a police car?
Yes, sir.
Did it have the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office logo on the doors?
Yes, sir.
How is it that you found out that you had been reassigned to the community relations position?
Myself and Sidney Dorsey had spoken about it on the night, maybe the day before I went there.
Did an intermediary tell you, or did Sidney Dorsey tell you?
Mr. Dorsey told me.
Okay. Did you, in fact, take over that position?
Yes, sir.
Shortly thereafter, did you have occasion to go to Sidney Dorsey's house?
I'm sorry.
Did you have an occasion sometime in August of the year 2000 to go to Sidney Dorsey's house?
Yes, sir.
Why is it that you went to Sidney Dorsey's house?
On most of the occasion, if not all, was to.
Did you have a meeting with Sidney Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
Did you go to his house for the purpose of that meeting?
Yes, sir.
What did you go to his house out of the clear blue sky, or did you receive a phone call asking you to come to the house?
I received a phone call asking me to come to his house.
Who was that phone call from, sir?
Mr. Dorsey.
The gentleman seated here in court today.
Yes, sir.
During that period of time, where were you living?
3785 Casey's Cove,
Would that have been an apartment or a home?
a house.
Was there anyone who was living with you there during that period of time?
Yes, sir.
Who would have been living with you during that period of time?
David Ramsey and Karen Burgess.
Was David Ramsey your childhood friend, now David Ramsey your adult friend?
Yes, sir.
How long had he been living in your home at Casey's Cove when you received this phone call from Mr. Dorsey to come to his home?
David had always established residency at my home. So when you say how long he's been living there before, he lived there a year before. He lived there maybe 8 months in the year 2000. So I'm not really sure what you're asking.
Okay. Was he permanently in the U.S., Mr. Ramsey?
No, sir.
Would he go back to the Virgin Islands on occasion?
Yes, sir.
Would he come to Atlanta on occasion?
Yes, sir.
When he came to Atlanta, would he stay with you?
Yes, sir.
Was he living with you in August of 2000?
Yes, sir.
When you got the phone call from Mr. Dorsey, did Mr. Ramsey's name come up?
Yes, sir.
What was said about Mr. Ramsey during the course of that phone conversation, sir?
Mr. Dorsey asked me to come to his house and make sure that David Ramsey stayed back at the home.
Make sure that June stays at home?
Yes, sir.
Is June the nickname for David Ramsey?
Yes, sir.
Does Melvin Walker have a nickname?
Yes, sir.
And what is that, sir?
MD.
Okay. Did you take David Ramsey with you, or did you go on your own to Sidney Dorsey's house?
I went alone as he requested.
Do you recall the approximate time of day it would have been when you arrived at his home, sir?
It would have been the earlier part of the evening, darkness. So when you say approximate, it could be from 2000 hours to maybe 2200 hours within that time.
You're using military time?
From
8 to 10 in the evening?
No, it was later than that. It was between 8 to 10, yes, I'm sorry.
And did you come into contact with Sidney Dorsey at his home?
Yes, sir.
Describe how Sidney Dorsey appeared during that period of time, sir.
His attire, his physical, what are you asking, sir?
Well, describe, first off, what was he wearing?
He was wearing a robe with what appeared to be a pajama bottoms.
And you said he was also tired?
I'm sorry?
You said he was tired as well?
Well, no.
I'm sorry, go ahead. What else? Describe him as best you can, sir.
He just appeared to have been his hair was messed up as if he was in bed for a long time.
That perm was messed up, huh?
He was certainly angry, or maybe just grieved, as if it was a person who was in mourning. That was the demeanor he had.
Okay. Did you, in fact, have a conversation with Mr. Dorsey at this time, sir?
Yes, sir.
Describe that for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please.
We walked to his patio, to the backyard.
Anybody else home at the time, sir?
I don't know.
Did you see anyone else in the house at that time?
No, sir.
Go ahead.
While standing on the patio, he handed me a paper that was folded. And when I opened it, it said, kill Derwin Brown.
Go ahead.
And as I looked at it, I asked him why.
Did he respond?
Yes, sir.
What did he say?
He said that Derwin was going to kill him. I said, are you sure? He said, absolutely. And then he continued to give me reason as to why we should kill Derwin Brown.
Was there a discussion concerning other people who might possibly have been able to or had been asked to kill Derwin Brown?
Yes, sir.
Please describe that for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, sir.
Within the conversation, when I told him that, well, he asked me if I had a problem with it, if I could handle it. And I said no.
When you said no, which question were you responding to? Whether you had a problem with it or whether you could handle it?
Whether I could handle it.
Go ahead, sir.
And I said no. And he couldn't understand why I couldn't handle it. And we're talking back and forth. And then Paul's name came up.
Paul Skyers?
Yes, sir. And then David Ramsey, not in the order. And Andy Walker. At that point,
Who brought their names up?
well, Mr. Dorsey did.
Did you suggest including
Welcome back.
Paul Skyers, or did SIDNEY Dorsey suggest including Paul Skyers?
He suggested, sir.
Did you suggest including David Ramsey, or did SIDNEY Dorsey suggest including David Ramsey?
Mr. Dorsey did, sir.
Did you suggest including Melvin Walker, or did SIDNEY Dorsey suggest including Melvin Walker?
Mr. Dorsey did, sir.
You had worked for SID?
Yes, sir.
Skyers had worked for SID?
Yes, sir.
Ramsey had worked for SID?
Yes, sir.
Walker had worked for SID?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
At that time when their name came up, it was then I felt better, or I felt more competent in order to even to entertain the requests. And I say that to say that, again, when he initially asked me to do it, I couldn't do it. And having the friends now, it made things easier. And I explained to him, okay, I'll talk to them. I'll see how they feel about it.
He was asking you to kill someone,
Yes, sir.
and you indicated you would consider the possibility.
Yes, sir.
Why?
After he had given me the reasons, I then decided that we could consider it. Consider the thought, or follow through and ask.
Would you characterize Mr. Dorsey as a strong person or a weak person?
Mentally or physically.
Not physically, but his personality. Did he have a strong personality or a weak personality, sir? SIDNEY Dorsey.
I still don't understand why. Oh.
Okay, I'll rephrase it. I'll move on, sir. Okay. How long did you, excuse me, I don't need to turn my back. How long did you talk to SIDNEY Dorsey that evening?
It's possible maybe an hour and a half.
During that time, were you out on the porch at all points?
The whole time, sir.
Did you subsequently go back and talk to the other people who?
Oh, we got to bring Miss Steph 219 up to point on this. Girl, come to find out that in 1996, before SIDNEY Dorsey ever even had won, before he even got into the office for the sheriff, when he was running for sheriff, he had already hatched the plan to put a hit out on his rival, some guy named Bob Morris, that was the sheriff then in 1996, with Patrick Cuffey, with Paul Skyers, the getaway driver who we just seen. So before he even got into office for the first time, he was willing to go to any length to get that position. And as far back as 1996, he already had 2 flunkies who was willing to do it. These guys were willing to do this type of stuff for him before he even had the position of sheriff. So it makes more sense why they were so willing and on board years later after Dorsey had already been in position. And then this guy, Patrick Cuffey, he idolized this man. And it's like such a case of manipulation, because it seemed to me like Dorsey would have him prove his loyalty, and he would give him little rewards, rewards along the way. Like he got the job at the police station, but he had a grunt job working in the jails. It took him a couple of years. He had to do other stuff. He had to do more stuff. And the more stuff he did to prove his loyalty, it seemed to me like Dorsey kind of piecemeal gave him a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So by the time, like now, he's describing the night that he went after Dorsey and lost the election, present time, 2000, Dorsey had him come to the house. He looking all crazy and depressed. This man was about to bust out crying just even thinking about the fact that his mentor was upset. And that's when Dorsey just asked him or said they need to assassinate Derwin Brown. But he told Cuffey that Dorsey told him that they had to kill Derwin Brown because Derwin Brown was going to kill him. Why would the new sheriff, who ran his whole campaign on cleaning up corruption, ending corruption, why would he have a plan to kill SIDNEY Dorsey, who he had already beat? He moved like an absolute mob boss, pimp, manipulator, just like when Cuffey just said. I thought that was really important, right? It stood out to me. When he asked him about putting a hit on Derwin Brown, he said, would you be able to handle it? That's manipulation, right? That's appealing to his ego. That's appealing to his arrogance. Like, not will you do it, but you think, will you even be able to handle it? So, of course, this man's ego is going to be like, I can handle anything. You know what I'm saying? And that's where you can hear the manipulation in it, and it's so sad that these people, but I would, it almost give me the thought of, maybe these guys was had poor, right? Like, are you strong enough? You know what I'm saying? I bet you can't do it. Do I need to get somebody else, not you? That type of deal. And that's why they said about he made mention of other people supposed to do it. He might not even have nobody else lined up to do it, but that's just another way to manipulate this man. And then I'm thinking he is a manipulator. And I'm thinking maybe these guys had you know, SIDNEY Dorsey was the key to them having some type of prestige or something. I typed in the comments, this is like a case of, I'm not the man, I ain't gonna never be the man, but I want to be the man next to the man. I want to be the man sitting next to the man who know the man. You know, that type of stuff. Do anything for clout. It's sad. Clout chasing back in 2000. Child.
Names you have mentioned, specifically Paul Skyers, David Ramsey, and Melvin Walker.
Yes, sir.
Had there been a discussion at that time as to what might be in it for them if they were to participate?
Yes, sir.
And was this discussion you had with Mr. Dorsey? The discussion about what they were going to get out of their participation. Did you discuss this with Mr. Dorsey?
Later on, yes, sir.
Okay. Before we get any further, sir, at some point you indicated that you were passed a note, and the note said, kill SIDNEY Dorsey, or not kill SIDNEY Dorsey, excuse me, kill Derwin Brown. What happened to that note?
After the meeting was over, Mr. Dorsey tore up the note in pieces, put it in his mouth, and started chewing on it to dispose of it.
Okay. When he showed you the note, did he let you keep the note?
No, sir.
Did he take the note back from you?
I imagine I later handed it to him, yes.
Okay. When you left his home that evening, did you have the note with you?
No, sir.
Have you seen that note
that
since?
part went to.
No, sir.
Did you contact the individual's name? Ramsey, Skyers, Walker.
Yes, sir.
Did you meet with them?
Yes, sir.
Explain the circumstances of the meeting to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, sir.
After I left Mr. Dorsey's home, I went home, which is where David Ramsey would have been. And I tell him what had just happened and what Mr. Dorsey had requested. And he gave his approval at that time.
When you say he gave his approval, did he agree to participate in the plot to kill Derwin Brown?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Considering the others would go along, I would then call MD Melvin Walker, and I would call Paul Skyers, and I would have told them to meet with me the following day at my home.
Did they come to your home?
Yes, sir.
Did you meet with them?
Yes, sir.
Physically, where did you meet with them, sir?
Myself and Paul Skyers and David Ramsey met in my subdivision at a lake within the subdivision, at which time I explained to Paul Skyers the request of Mr. Dorsey, and I showed him similar to the event that had happened the night before by writing it on a paper and later disposing of it again by chewing it. MD Walker would have
Hold up a second, sir. Did you show Mr. Skyers a note?
Yes, sir.
What was written on that note?
Kill Derwin Brown.
Who had prepared that note?
I did, sir.
Was that the same note or a different note that SIDNEY Dorsey had shown you?
Different one, sir.
Where did you get the idea of communicating by note?
The night before when Mr. Dorsey had done it, I had done it that way.
Okay. What was Paul Skyers' reaction upon seeing the note?
He asked what that meant, in which I explained to him the night before I had spoken to Dorsey, and this is what he had showed me, and this is what he had told me.
Let me ask you this, sir. Did you explain to David Ramsey, when you talked to him about the plot to kill Derwin Brown, who was requesting that you do this?
Yes, sir.
Whom did you tell him, sir?
Mr. Dorsey.
When you talked to Paul Skyers, did you explain to him who was requesting do this?
Yes, sir.
What did you tell him, sir?
Mr. Dorsey.
What was Paul Skyers' response to that statement, sir?
Paul, I remembered, said, I knew that he was going to ask us to do this.
This is what Paul Skyers said?
Yes, sir.
And when you said, I knew he was going to ask us to do this, who was he referring to?
Mr. Dorsey.
Did you communicate with Melvin Walker as well, sir?
Yes, sir.
When would you have communicated with Melvin Walker?
That same day.
Did you explain to him what had been requested of you?
Yes, sir.
Did you explain to him who had requested that you kill Derwin Brown?
Yes, sir.
Did Melvin Walker agree to participate?
Yes, sir.
Was he involved in the murder?
Yes, sir.
Was David Ramsey involved in the murder?
Yes, sir.
Was Paul Skyers involved in the murder?
Yes, sir.
Were you, Mr. Cuffey, were you involved in the murder?
Yes, sir.
You had indicated that at some point there was a discussion with Mr. Dorsey as to who was going to get what by virtue of their participation in this plot. Please describe that for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, sir.
Well, as we went along, within days, everyone saw the opportunity to get something out of it. And those were the requests. Everybody had an individual request.
Specifically, what did Paul Skyers want?
Paul Skyers just wanted a job.
With the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
Did you communicate that request to Sidney Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
What was Sidney Dorsey's response to Paul Skyers' request?
He would take care of it.
What was David Ramsey's request?
June wanted a job also at the sheriff's department, but there were some stipulation that he wanted to work specifically in a narcotic field division, and that he specifically didn't want to cut his braids.
At the time, when he's living with you at your home in August of 2000, what was his hair like, sir?
Very long braids, sir.
How many sheriffs, how many deputy sheriffs, or how many employees of the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office at that time wore very long braids?
None that I knew of.
Did Mr. Ramsey want to have to cut his braids?
No, sir.
Did he request a job in the sheriff's office whereby he would not have to cut his braids?
Yes, sir.
Did you communicate that request to Sidney Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
What was Sidney Dorsey's response to that specific request?
He specifically told me that it can be done and that he would arrange it where Ramsey would have gone through the academy, explaining to the people at the academy that Mr. Ramsey was being hired for a specific narcotic assignment. So he assured me, in turn I assured June that he said he can do it.
And again, when you refer to June, you are referring to Mr. Ramsey?
David Ramsey.
Did Mr. Walker
These
have
are
a
all
request?
men, children.
Yes, sir.
What was Mr. Walker's request?
I cannot believe this.
MD wanted to immediately start the academy, and that he wanted to be assigned to the SWAT division within the sheriff's department, and he would later be the one in command there.
Did you communicate Mr. Walker's request to Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
Again, what was Mr. Dorsey's response?
Yes, sir. That he will take care of it.
What did you want, Mr. Coffey?
I would have then wanted to be in charge of the community relations, in which I was already in, and that no specific promise of, no specific rank was promised, but he promised that he would speedily promote me through the ranks, and that I had a few friends and family that needed a job that he would hire for me.
Now, as the Director of Community Relations, who was your immediate supervisor?
It would be Mr. Dorsey.
Did you report to anyone else from the time you became the Director of Communications until Mr. Dorsey left office?
Yes, sir.
Who else did you report to?
For the first couple weeks, few weeks maybe, I reported to Lieutenant Roy Baker.
Other than Lieutenant Baker, was there anyone else you reported to other than Mr. Dorsey?
No, sir.
Okay. After the meeting near the pond in your subdivision, did you report back to Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
How quickly would you have reported back to Mr. Dorsey, sir?
I believe, sir, it was the next day.
Okay. Would you have talked to him on the phone, or would you have talked to him in person?
It would be in person at his home.
Okay. How often would you see SIDNEY Dorsey during this period of time, sir?
What period of time, sir?
Well, from the time when you had met with the individuals at the pond to discuss the killing of Derwin Brown up until the actual murder of Derwin Brown.
Approximately maybe 25, 30 occasion.
Okay. Would you meet with him in his office?
Yes, sir.
Would you talk to him on the phone?
Yes, sir.
Would you ever go to his home on any other occasions than the one you have just described after the meeting where he asked you to kill Derwin Brown?
I don't understand.
I'm sorry, it's a convoluted question. Did you go to his house anytime during this period of time to talk to him?
Yes, sir.
How many times would you estimate you would have gone to his house to talk to him during this period of time?
Within the 25, 30 times, maybe 10 of those times.
During those meetings, would you give him an update as to the progress of the plan as to how to kill Derwin Brown?
Yes, sir.
At that time, sir, did you know initially where Derwin Brown lived?
At which time, sir?
When you decided to go ahead and agree to kill him?
We thought we did, but we didn't.
What steps, well, when you say you thought you did, but you didn't? Explain, sir, what do you mean?
Well, we initially thought a specific neighborhood within the very close actual neighborhood of Derwin Brown was his neighborhood, but it wasn't. So when we thought it was one location, it was actually another. So initially we thought we knew where the home was.
They would just throw it up all the way around.
Come to find out when we did a couple of days of surveillance that we realized that we was at the wrong house.
Okay. Who was involved in the surveillance of the home that you thought belonged to Derwin Brown?
myself, Paul Skyers, MD Walker, and David Ramsey.
At some point, did you come to the realization that, whoops, we got the wrong place?
Yes, sir.
What attempts did you make at that time to figure out where Derwin Brown lived?
I went to see SIDNEY Dorsey, and I told him, explained to him our dilemma, that we thought we were at the right home, but we had the wrong home. Is there any way that he knows firsthand the address of Derwin Brown? He said no. He explained his word war. Cuffy, you got to be creative. And
Let me ask you this, sir. When he called you, did he call you Patrick or did he call you Cuffy?
I think during that time, it was Cuffy.
Okay. He said, Cuffy, you've got to get creative.
Yes, sir.
Did you become creative?
Yes, sir.
What'd you do?
We went to the library.
When you say we went to the library, who specifically went to the library, sir?
Myself, David Ramsey, and MD Walker drove to the library.
Which library, if you recall?
We initially went to the one on Rainbow Drive and Wesley Chapel. When we got there, they explained that they didn't have that information. We requested information on political candidates who ran for office within that 2000 election.
Wait.
And the librarian explained that she didn't have that information there, but she suggested to go to the downtown Decatur library.
So all the hitmen went to the local library together, went into the library and asked questions about the target. These are the dumbest criminals in the world. Period.
Library, and it was about closing time on the same day, and we decided to take a chance and try and beat closing. And we got there on time. Same question was asked to the librarian at the Decatur library, and she had the information. The librarian at that time explained that it would be on microfiche. She showed.
Okay, it's not necessary to go into specific detail, but as a result of that, did you get Derwin Brown's home address?
Yes, sir.
Did you get anybody else's home address?
Yes, sir.
Who else's home address did you get?
J. Tom Morgan's.
The gentleman seated right here?
Yes, sir.
Why did you get J. Tom Morgan's home address?
Well, Mr. Morgan's name had come up also as being a conspirator with Derwin Brown to blame Mr. Dorsey for corruption. And even though it was not a go yet that he would be also on the hit list, but Mr. Morgan name appeared on the microfiche, so we got it at that point.
This conversation you had about framing Sidney Dorsey was with who?
I don't know why it's giving all these problems with the buffering. I don't know. Sorry about
names
that.
were coming up.
I'm not. Tell us those names, sir.
Tony Scipio was one of those. Ron Ramsey was one of them.
The gentleman who was previously a lawyer for Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Sharice Miss Beasley name was on that list also.
Had she filed a lawsuit against Mr. Dorsey at that time?
Right, they were going to kill everybody.
To your knowledge, if you know.
She had claimed some sexual harassment charges, yes.
Okay. Anyone else, sir?
Yes. Stacy Simon name later came up.
Who was Stacy Simon?
She was an officer at the sheriff's department in which I had personally borrowed a gun.
We'll get to that later, but was she employed by the Dekalb County Sheriff's Office as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, did you actually conduct surveillance on the home of Mr. Morgan, Mr. Ramsey, or Miss Beasley, or anyone else to your knowledge?
No,
did
sir.
any of the folks conduct surveillance on those people?
No, sir.
Was surveillance conducted on the home of Derwin Brown?
Yes, sir.
Who would have participated in the surveillance on the home of Derwin Brown?
It would be myself, David Ramsey, Paul Skyers, and MD Walker.
How often would this surveillance take place, sir?
Once we started, it would be, once we found the address, once we confirmed the location, it would be every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from the time we started till the day Derwin was killed.
Why was the surveillance scheduled for the weekends as opposed to during the week?
Well, I'll take that back. I'm sorry. Throughout the week, there were some surveillance conducted. And what I meant was that on the weekends, the weekends days that I called were days that we were, if we had the opportunity, would have taken the opportunity if there was a confirmed kill, then during the weekends were the time it was going to happen. But throughout the week, when we did the surveillance, for example, if we couldn't find him, if we didn't know exactly his whereabouts on weekdays, on some occasion, we did some surveillance.
Was there a plan to kill him on the weekend?
Yes, sir.
Why was there a plan to kill him specifically on the weekend?
Well, it was a matter of convenience for alibis. And
whose alibi?
It would be for myself and Mr. Dorsey.
Okay. Now, Mr. Dorsey was not going to participate in the actual killing, was he?
No, sir.
Explain then how it would work to his advantage for it to be done on the weekend.
Well, again, the advantage would be that we would be in a public area during the time. I'm not
When
sure.
you say he, Mr. Dorsey,
And myself, yes.
was it the original intent to have you participate in the actual murder of Derwin Brown?
No, sir.
Who was going to participate in the actual murder of Derwin Brown?
I'm sorry.
Was Mr. Skyers going to participate?
Yes, sir.
Was Mr. Ramsey going to participate?
Yes, sir.
Was Mr. Walker going to participate?
Yes, sir.
Were attempts made to acquire a gun for this particular purpose, sir?
Yes, sir.
Had there been discussions with Mr. Dorsey about the particular method that should be used to kill Derwin Brown?
Yes, sir.
Will you describe those to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, sir?
Again, when we agreed that we would follow through with his request, he suggested immediately that Derwin should die by way of strangulation.
When you say he suggested, again, sir, be specific. To whom are you referring?
Mr. Dorsey suggested that
Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
we, when I say strangulate, we're talking about by hand. He figured, again, it was when we initially said we would do it, it was 4 against 1. There would be no traces of any type of weapon.
Did someone bring up the subject of not being able to trace a particular weapon if he were strangled to death?
Yes, sir.
Who brought that
So who
subject
brought out
up?
the machine gun?
Mr. Dorsey.
Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Yes. Again, that was the first method. He insisted on that method. It was not convenient for us because 4 of us had decided that we did not want to wrestle with anyone, and that the easiest method would be by way of using a gun with a silencer.
Were attempts made to find a gun?
Yes, sir.
Describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury attempts which were made to find a gun. Let me ask you this, sir. You know someone named Jared Richardson?
Yes, sir.
Who is Jared?
Jared Richardson is a former sheriff, Fulton County Sheriff Deputy I met while working at the Grady Unit. He invited me over to his home on several occasions. I noticed that he had a personal weapon, and one of them would have been a suppressor, sort of like a silencer type.
Did you ever go to Jared Richardson's with anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Who did you go there with, sir?
David Ramsey.
What was your purpose in going to Mr. Richardson's home?
To try and obtain a weapon.
Trying to obtain a what?
A weapon, a gun.
Were you successful in obtaining a
They
weapon
stole it?
from Mr. Richardson?
No, sir.
Did you ask Mr. Richardson if you could borrow a weapon?
Yes, sir.
What was his response?
No.
Did you make other attempts to obtain a weapon?
Yes, sir.
What other attempts did you make to obtain a weapon, sir?
Myself and David Ramsey, throughout the course of the day, on a regular occasion. We would drive into the known drug areas or turf. And we would profile certain individuals, black male, drug dealer probably, and we would conduct some illegal search. And
Were you in uniform when you did this?
yes, sir.
Were you in a DeKalb County Sheriff's Office vehicle when you would do this?
Yes, sir, but let me correct. I was not in the uniform. I was dressed as an undercover police officer.
What does that mean, sir?
Well, I would have my badge displayed. I would be armed with a weapon and so forth.
Did you succeed in getting a weapon in that regard?
Not in that manner.
Okay. Did anyone participate in that venture with you other than David Ramsey?
No, sir.
Estimate for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the number of times you would have attempted to get a weapon doing that.
That method?
Yes.
On 3 occasions, I remember.
Okay. At some point was in fact a weapon obtained.
Yes, sir.
Where did that weapon come from?
Paul Skyers.
Was the gun functional when it was first obtained?
No, sir.
What kind of gun was it?
A Tech-9.
A Tech-9, is that an automatic gun?
Semi-automatic, sir.
Okay. And were attempts made to fix the gun to make sure that it worked?
Yes, sir.
Were attempts made to construct a silencer?
Yes, sir.
Who would have been involved in the attempt to construct a silencer?
It would be Paul Skyers and David Ramsey.
Specifically, what steps did they take to construct a silencer?
They made a purchase of an extension for the barrel, certain inserts, padding, and PVC was bought for the purpose of assisting in suppressing the noise. Holes were drilled in certain parts of the muzzle of the weapon.
Who would have done all this work?
It would be mainly Paul Skyers and David Ramsey. On occasion, I stood by and watched and assist.
Was it necessary to purchase any sort of items in order to construct the silencer?
Yes, sir.
Where would those items have been purchased from, sir?
There was a few things that was ordered through a pawn shop, I think, and some stuff that was bought at Home Depot.
Okay. At any point was the use of a potato discussed to serve as a silencer?
Yes, sir.
How was that going to work?
So right now he embarrassed because all this shit sound dumb as hell.
Well, David Ramsey suggested that it could work. He was certain it could work. Instead of going through the problem of leaving paper trail in terms of buying parts and accessories. So that attempt was made. It worked, but it was not convenient.
This is ridiculous.
Well, what was the potato going to do, sir? What would one do with a potato that can make a silencer for a gun?
He know that shit sound dumb.
It would be placed at the front sight of the muzzle of the weapon.
Did it work?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you use the potato as the silencer?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, how long did it take to actually construct the silencer as best you can recall?
Maybe 2 steady weeks.
All
sorry,
this
I
shit
cannot
came
hear
from
you, sir.
watching too many
Maybe 2
movies.
steady weeks.
Okay.
And the wrong movies at
At
that.
some point, was a decision made between the people involved in the plot to kill Derwin Brown as to who would be the actual shooter?
I bet they talked about them in prison.
Yes, sir.
How was that decision made, sir?
Well,
Yeah, ain't
initially,
none of these guys the
the
smartest.
shooter was designated as David Ramsey, and that was again requested by SIDNEY DORSEY.
Why did Sidney Dorsey request David Ramsey?
Again, in the event that ever light was ever shed upon
Not at
us,
all.
that it would show that
dummies.
he had. There was no reason, there was no type of gain or reason for him to want to do.
Was David Ramsey a full-time
Oh, he-
resident of
no, no,
DeKalb
no.
County at that time?
No, sir.
None of them know how to get it.
Was Paul Skyers living in the Atlanta area at that time?
No, sir.
Paul
Well-
Skyers wasn't living in Atlanta?
In Gwinnett County. When you
Gwinnett
say-
County, okay, the Atlanta area. Was Melvin Walker living here in the Atlanta area, when I say here, in the
None of
Atlanta
them wanted
area at
much or
that
nothing.
time?
Nobody wanted no
Were
money.
you living in the Atlanta area at that time?
Yes, sir.
Real
Before,
flunkies.
was Mr. Ramsey the one with the least ties to the community?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
96. I don't think MacGyver was still coming on in 2000.
We're talking specifically
They
about
actually
how
did
it
the
was
hit
decided
2000.
who was going to be the shooter.
Yes.
But MacGyver way smarter.
That was the initial agreement. Myself, Paul,
Maybe the 18.
Skyers, and MD Walker just didn't think that
What about the 18?
Ramsey
y'all?
was up to par. And when I say that, I simply meant that if 4 of us was going to be involved, David had the least amount of training, and it would probably
Training.
be suicide on our end to allow him to be the point man.
Was
So,
a decision made as to who was actually going to be the shooter?
yes, sir.
Remember they
And
pulled
who was
straws.
going to be the actual shooter, sir?
I decided at my home one evening, during the same discussion, that, well, why don't we pull straws to
See,
see
there we go.
who's going to be the shooter?
Yeah, the
And we
18
agreed,
sound more
well,
like.
that's fair.
Again, speak up, sir. Your voice has a tendency to tail off.
And we agreed, okay, that was fair to pull straws.
As a result of that, was someone selected?
Yes, sir.
Who was selected?
MD Walker.
Did Melvin Walker, in fact, shoot and kill Derwin Brown?
Yes, sir.
Did Melvin Walker participate in
That's
surveillance
not what Paul
on the home of
Skyers
Derwin
said.
Brown?
Yes, sir.
Did you participate in surveillance on the home of Derwin Brown?
Yeah. Yeah. Come on, come on, come on. Man, I don't know what's going on with this computer tonight. Why it's not letting me be great? I don't even think y'all can.
Brown.
Oh, let me be quiet.
Yes, sir.
Did Mr. Skyers and Mr. Ramsey participate in surveillance on the home of Derwin Brown?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall whether anyone would take weapons with them when surveillance was being conducted?
Yes, sir.
What weapons would have been taken with you when surveillance was being conducted?
It would have been the Tech 9, a 380, and on occasion, Paul Skies carried a 9mm Smith & Wesson.
How large of a gun is a 380?
It's a very small gun compared to the two.
Is it a handgun?
So it's a small gun, fit in the palm of my hand.
The 9mm, is that a handgun?
It is, sir, a little larger than the 380.
Where did the 9mm come from?
Paul Skiers.
Where did the 380 come from?
Child, we about to end because I don't know what's going on.
A friend of mine,
That is not me.
Simon.
Was that the individual you had mentioned previously as having been on the hit list?
Hey, OG Wu Child, good to see you.
Carried his Smith & Wesson 9mm.
So maybe they was
How many
remembering
times
back that far.
did you yourself
why they
participate
fucked it up.
in surveillance on Derwin Brown's house?
I believe it was every time.
That's the type of shows
And
they
how
were
many times, again, would you estimate that to be, sir?
Again, estimating from the time we started every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and on occasion, a day or two within the week, within that week period.
During any of those times, did you have specific information telling you when Derwin Brown would be coming home?
On a few occasions, we had specific that, yes, he would be coming.
Did that information pan out? Did it turn out to be true?
Yes, sir.
And were attempts made on those occasions to shoot and kill Derwin Brown?
Yes, sir.
Were shots actually fired at Derwin Brown prior to December 15th of the year 2000?
No, sir.
Why is it that it took so long to shoot and kill Derwin Brown, sir?
Truthfully, sir, I think it was coupled with a few things.
Again, speak up, sir.
It was coupled with a couple things.
No,
One was
it keep breaking.
a matter of
Hold on, let me just
convenience.
stop.
And I think
I don't know, and I'm not doing anything.
we were building our nerves.
Hold on.
Again, sir, you said something about your nerves, but I
But just-
apologize.
And I restarted my computer before I went live tonight in order to not have any glitches. I ain't gonna lie, it's just time for me to get a new computer, y'all. A new desktop computer.
To make sure I hear, to be able to make sure that these folks hear.
Hold on, I'm trying to pause it right here so we can pick up here tomorrow. So, we learned some interesting things. Number one, we found out that absolutely it was the other dude, the driveway guy.
Repeat what you
We
said
got him
about
here.
your nerves.
I say we were probably
We learned
building up our nerves.
on. That besides just
Were there
being
occasions where you actually saw Derwin Brown at or about his house while you were conducting
hold on. Sheriff,
Surveillance.
hold on, god damn. Let me write down 1 hour and 24 minutes. That's what we stopped this at, 1 hour and 24 minutes. Let me write that down. But we also found out and learned, and we get to see in action how much of a grade A manipulator Dorsey is. Okay, we pick this up at 1 hour, 24 minutes. Coffee, part 1. I think another big thing we learned tonight is the fact, I think this might be the biggest thing. We absolutely learned tonight without any of a doubt that Dorsey, even before he achieved the status, the prestige, and the power that he took advantage of with the position of sheriff, even before he even got that far, got that position, he was already willing to go to any length, even by unaliving people, to get into that position. That was huge. I don't even remember watching in a true crime story. I don't even remember nothing ever being mentioned about that. So that just took me totally for a loop. I'm like, dang, he was willing to kill people and everything else from the very beginning. and that he already had these people lined up, and they was in a position whereas they idolized him and they saw Dorsey as the means to their life being changed. You know what I'm saying? To have definite jobs, to make more money, have certain guaranteed jobs, and then most of them didn't even qualify to be policemen, period. And one dude, the one who actually ended up shooting the man, he wanted to be captain of the SWAT team. And these are all people that couldn't even get a job with the police department on their own by just applying. And OG Wusau child say, I'm beyond flabbergasted at the planning, in quotations, that went into it. Yeah, how many months of planning we on the other night? More than 3 months, maybe 6 months of planning, meeting on Fridays, and literally they still look at the plan. But guess what? They got away with it for a year. No matter how much bumbling, no matter how much fumbling in the ball, no matter how many stupid ass things they didn't did, they didn't went to the library to go get an address all together in a library, went to 2 libraries asking about the name of the person they gonna hit. Okay. They didn't even, out of 4 hitmen, they got get hired on to do this job. Nobody have a gun. Nobody know how to get access to a gun. They literally went to another cop house to borrow a gun. Come to find out, they pulling people over doing illegal searches. And if you notice, he was the police officer at the time, but the other guy that he said with him doing these illegal searches, dressed like an undercover, wasn't even no cop. It was the Ramsey dude with the long hair. Derwin Ramsey wanted a guaranteed job where he can keep his braids. Even though how stupid and how bad this put together, they literally got away with it for over a year. It wasn't until Patrick Cuffey, who on the stand now, because he lost his job, he wasn't no longer a policeman, then he started being a drug dealer. Okay. When he started doing the drug dealing, that's how he got into like a robbery situation, whatever, and end up shooting another drug dealer. And that's how they got him to tell it when he was in jail. Other than that, they hadn't even got arrested. They didn't even have no clue of who did it. Lady Steph said they probably were scared. They really didn't want to do that. They were manipulated and dumb. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Scared. 4 guys. The sheriff say the best way to do it would be to strangle. No noise, no weapons, no forensics, all that type of stuff. The sheriff telling them how to best do it. 4 men, they didn't want to have to wrestle and physically do anything with Derwin. Out of 4 hitmen. It's crazy. Crazy. I'm going to call you back in a minute, honey. My honey wasn't feeling too good. He went home. That's wild. He was going to take that office by any means. Hush. I'm glad you said that. By any means necessary. No, you can't get on the bed. You still drying up. No. By any means necessary to get into office and by any means necessary to stay in office, right? And let's talk about the fact of how long that hit list was. That's not funny. But did y'all hear the half a dozen, if not more, names that was on the hit list? So they just figured after assassinating the would-be, and Champ just left, the would-be sheriff, so the Derwin, Sheriff Derwin, he gets assassinated in front of his house. Dorsey magically becomes back the sheriff. And then in the next year or 2, nobody was supposed to be suspicious when this officer came up to say dead, when this cop come up assassinated, when this woman cop come up dead. Nobody was supposed to know nothing. Nobody was going to figure it out. They were just going to get rid of and knock off all the goddamn sheriff department, whoever wasn't in on it, right? Everybody was going to just come up missing and dead. Just like the sheriff and then told the Bells boss, Shirley, that you have to pay the piper and you don't get anything for free. That's the same way he treated these men. Right. And he only gave them a little bit at a time because guess what? They doing all this on a word, a prayer, and a promise. Right? But it would have probably took them years. Like, go ahead and get them a job, start them off just like he started off Cuffy. Cuffy wanted to be in investigations. He wanted to be a detective. Cuffy wanted to be in the streets working. He worked at the jailhouse for like 3 years before he even got to do something else. It was a Turner position. Turner. Exactly. These guys had big dreams and they wanted to be cops. But I think they wanted to be dirty ass cops. Can you imagine if the guy who was the hitman who actually pulled the trigger, if this would have worked and all these guys, these hitmen, these ne'er-do-wellers would have literally been wearing a uniform, they would have terrorized that goddamn city. Hitmen with no weapons had to draw straws on who's going to be the trigger guy. Lord. Okay. And then, wait a minute. With a potato as a silencer. Okay. Child, Rock and Apollo. I'm scared right now for Apollo because Rock then came back home really aggressive. And one of the guys on the hit list is in the courtroom. Yeah. He wanted to kill everybody. Period. You know, Rock came back home, y'all, and he's so aggressive. He's so aggressive. I'm just not gonna let him go nowhere on the weekend anymore with my son and my two boys because they roughhouse with him too much, and it takes him a minute to get back in his right state of mind. He already did bit at Apollo, and you know Apollo missed him so much over the weekend. So Apollo really want to play with Rock, but Rock being so aggressive, they was dumb. They dumber than a box of Rock. I said the other day that Rock was going to come back acting up. Yes. And so, you know what, Lady Self, you're right. And you know what? He can't go no more. He can't go no more because he being mean. He even growled at me. He being mean. And my poor baby, I'm so scared. I don't want him to get bit up and stuff like that. It's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. But it's going to get worked out. They're going to be okay. I bought them a new big toy. What's it called? A tug of war toy. Because they had just, when they was getting along before he left, they had just started playing tug of war together. I'm going to have to show y'all the video. I'll get it ready for tomorrow. So this weekend, I bought them a big one. That way they can have more room and everything. So they'll get okay, hopefully by tomorrow, child. Poor Rock can't get on his getaways no more. Not anymore. Because he come home too crazy. Did you buy them pig ears? No, I haven't bought them no pig ears. I need to buy them some pig ears. I do buy them, but I hadn't bought them. Today I bought a long pack of them tiny little bones. And baby, Apollo is tearing that up already. You know what I'm saying? Renee say be nice, Rock. Rock. Renee say be nice. You want to be nice? You need mama to trim your face? I say be nice. You say, okay, now one good thing, y'all know we got to end to talk about my puppies. The one good thing about me and Apollo being here this weekend, all this time, Apollo has learned how to have a little tiny bit of a chill. He learned how child. Nah, he can't tell him nicely. Girl, you need to post these tiny bones. You need to post these tiny bones so I can know what to buy. Oh, yeah, I'll post them. I got them at the dollar store, but they some little tiny little rawhide bones. And he tore them up, you know. And then, like, Apollo was so lonely without Rock and nobody here. Then Champ came last night. And when Champ came, his daddy came over here. Champ is boring. Okay, so they never played. Yeah, y'all know what Rock want. He want to get on my bed, but he not fully dry yet. I was able to blow dry him a little bit, but then he get tired of it. So I need to blow dry him some more, but then I'll let him feel. When they say she know Rock, she know. Come here. Oh. Say I'm not all the way dry yet. I'm gonna trim his face hairs and get that brown off of him and everything. I'm gonna trim him. He gonna be ready for a grooming in a couple of months, and now he got his shots. Let his hair grow back a little bit. He gonna be able to get groomed. Girl, Rock wanna get on the bed, y'all. Now the baby, I'll be so excited. Don't forget, I promise y'all, in the pit crew on the other side, I'm gonna do a Shein fashion haul and show y'all my my haul and stuff, and I'm gonna show y'all my clothes I got, and then I'm gonna show y'all his little outfits he got. Okay. No, what you all didn't know about? Don't trim his face hairs. He said, how the heck you gonna force me to have this new child in this house? Now you telling me I can't go out to party? Nah, and then Rock is 5 pounds. Hey. Hush. No. Child, do not groom Rock. I started grooming Apollo. Y'all know them videos where they be doing the most with them little dogs, washing their face and doing the little cologne and stuff like that. I want to do that with Apollo. I bought Apollo a new brush today, and I'm gonna find like that stuff that you put on their fur when they be having that stuff on them and stuff. Y'all know them videos. I should have got a girl puppy. Let me get off of here. I should have got a girl, even though I love my Apollo. But now it's like I want to dress him up and stuff. And so now that I want to buy clothes, it's like I almost wish I had a girl so I could have little dresses on them. But we're going to hook him up. Look, you see Apollo? You look scared, huh? So, okay, but he's not ready to go to the groomer yet. Rock is not happy. No, he want to get on my bed. So let me go, y'all. So tomorrow night we're gonna pick up on this. We're gonna watch a little bit more Cuffy, and then we're gonna watch the fence call The Wife. No. We're gonna watch The Wife. Okay? Your girl snatches her clothes off. Yeah, but the girls are so cute. But y'all see how he let me hold him again like a baby? He picked this up over the weekend and just being mommy to him. So let me go because Rock having a fit. Y'all have a good night. We shall meet here. Court reconvenes tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Good night, everybody. And we're going to wrap this trial up this week. See y'all in the morning. I will be here in the morning.
Thanks for watching. Do not forget click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Like, comment and share. See you next time.